But yeah, we're not the only ones who are live tonight. So anyway, I think we're live right now. Actually, we are. How's it going, guys? Welcome to the show. Let us know. Make sure let us know that you can hear us in the chat. Give me a 5x5, please. I always ask, and you guys can always hear us, but the time that I don't, you guys are like, we can't hear you. So anyway, tonight we are joined by Tony Rodrigues once again for the 6th time, actually. So I went back through all the episodes. Tony has been on episode 101, 102, 108, 138, 158, and then now 166. So
right on.
Nice. Which is actually if you didn't know that, I would recommend going back because he's told a lot of his story here on the show. So we're going to get into some aspects of his story that he doesn't typically talk about. But if you want that testimony, you can go back to any one of those episodes, or you can also check out his most recent interview with Dr. Sala.
And we're going to talk about
the book. But your interview with Sala was really awesome, actually. It was, every time I listen to you, it's something, I learned something new. And he asked some really good questions. It was a really good interview. I really liked it. So I thought that was excellent. And congratulations on the book, man. It's selling. People are loving it. How's it feel?
It's surreal. And, I want to talk about basically what's happened since, because I knew that there was people waiting for it. We did a pre-order. People helped raise money. There was a pre-order, like a fundraiser, and it sold. I offered 100 copies. I think we sold like 72 or 71 of them. And so that money we kicked it into, graphics and all that. Like, it just carried it. It carried and bought time to work on the book. And honestly, I have a gaping hole in my life now because the book's done and I'm not working on anything in those hours. I was up, Jackie and I did a lot of the last bit of editing over, like, I don't even know how long, a month or two. And it was like every night. And so now I have a couple hours a night that I'm not doing anything. I feel like I'm late for somewhere, but it's #1, man. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect it to go to #1 in its category. It's been the #1 new release. And then for a couple days it was bestseller. So, you know what I mean? It gets like chunks. So I was not prepared for that. I knew I knew that there was people waiting, but I didn't think it was going to do what it's doing. So I'm a little bit humbled by it.
That's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, just some of the reviews I've read in the comments under this video. I mean, people are already done with it, and they love it.
People are absolutely snorting the book. They're just snorting. I mean, really, there's people that are telling me they read it in 5-6 hours, that they're, like, I read it, got the book at noon, and I was done at midnight. And I'm getting all this.
And it's a big book too.
I want to tell you guys how
good sized book.
I want to tell you guys about the spacing, because if you look at it, whenever you're reading the book, so Jackie and I kind of went back and forth in the beginning. I don't know her exact degree, but she went to college for this stuff. And she's very, she had like a literary, whatever. She was in journalism, and she took college courses on how to edit books. And I started putting spacing. If you look at the book, there's a lot of spacing in between lines that stretches it out. Yeah. And that stretched it out, makes it more pages than it really is. And she's like, don't do that. In the beginning, she was like, don't do that. And I was like, okay. The next day I went ahead and did it. And she's like, why are you spacing that? I'm saying, look, and I said, look, Jackie, I kind of held my ground. I said, this is how I write. If somebody emails me, if you message me on Messenger or whatever it is, that's how I write. I have to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I put a space instead of a period. It's something I've always done since the internet happened, And so that was how I did my book. So there's a lot of spaces in between lines. So it's faster to read. It's a fast read because of that. A lot of people say, man, your book is so readable.
And the text is like a pretty big size. Yeah.
And it's a text. So we learned that little trick. Like,
yes,
next time we'll shrink the text because it'll be less pages and cheaper to print from Amazon. It'll be cost less money, because this is the first revision. There is going to be a revision. We're going to shrink the text and try to get a smaller one, like a second revision. It's going to happen. And when probably right around the time we do the Kindle release.
What I like about that, though, like Peter Slattery's books are that way. A few books are that way. And I realize when I'm reading them, it's effortless. You can fly through it. Your brain doesn't have to think about reading as much, if that makes sense. Like you're just, and it helps. It's actually makes it easier for me to retain the information also. It's just, it's like more pleasant on the eyes. So
Yeah, I'm not the most literary guy. I'm not Mark Twain, and I don't crunch any book quickly. And I just don't read a lot. You know, in my professional life, I'm a craftsman. So it's not something that I do. You know what I mean? Like it's a muscle that you got to do. Some people are very good at reading. Brad Olson sent me his book, Beyond Esoteric.
Yeah.
And we were still in PDF form on my book. And I opened it up and I was like,
that book.
Whoa, I wrote Brad. I said, dude, you're a machine. There's like 500 pages. This is a tight print. And there's like 500 some text. Pages. I was like, you are a machine.
It's the smallest text I've ever seen in the book.
You need a magnifying glass,
and
because
it's 500.
He squeezed so much stuff in there. Yeah, I was like, man, I feel like I'm putting out a comic book.
Yeah.
By the way, I still haven't gotten my copy yet. So
you know why though, Tyler? Because it's in my hand. This is your copy right here. I'm going to sign this tonight while we're on the show to Tyler. And I'll get this in the mail this week because I just
then he's gonna get in his car and drive to my house while we're on the Zoom call and deliver it.
Yeah, he's gonna deliver it in person.
Well, you know what? We were talking about that off air, that I bought mine as soon as the book was live on Amazon. I bought 125 author copies to do the pre-order, and they were like, "Well," and this was like January 1st, Saturday. That's what, the 1st or 2nd, and they said it'll be delivered. Expect them around the 16th. And I thought, okay, so when people buy the book, it's going to take them, it must be a printing process. They do it one at a time. And people all of a sudden that night were getting your book will be here Wednesday. So people that are buying the book, so Amazon drags their feet on the author's copies. And I felt really bad for the pre-order people. A lot of people are like, what's up, man? People are already reading your book. They're already done with it. And I pre-ordered it months ago. What's going on? Yeah. And I feel really bad about it, but it was Amazon. They, it just makes sense for them to not give me my discounted ones to sell to people so that they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. There's a really good reason he's the second richest man in the earth.
Yeah.
Publicly.
Yeah, publicly. Yeah.
Exactly. It's all right though. Everybody's gonna get it and they're gonna read it. And
I wanted to say thank you for getting me on. I know you guys have been really busy. Your schedule's been packed. You had a lot of great guests lately. Your show's just kicking ass. But thank you for squeezing me in, because that's another thing that I learned. So I'm learning in this process. The algorithm of Amazon works. Like the more people that you don't have to buy the book, but the more people that click on the link make it more searchable in the very first month. So it's very important that I get out here and tell everybody about it now, rather than if I wait 2 or 3 months down the road and people click it, you don't get as big of a pop in the search.
It gets buried. Yeah.
It's an algorithm. So it's important to get out and do some shows and just let people know about it,
Right. So, so by now, not most people, but a lot of our listeners probably know your story. And and they've heard it. And I mean, I was looking, man, you've done like at least 100 interviews by now.
Over 200.
Over 200. Oh, wow. That many. Because I found a site that compiled all of them, but it stopped at like right around 100. So
most of them. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And then there's so many aspects to your story that people haven't heard and you can't cover in any interview. And is that what sets the book apart from the interviews as you get into all that?
So the book, there's a lot of details that are not in the book that are like day-to-day, like deep mundane details that I put them in there. And I was just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what stuck when I was writing the book. I was just, you know what I mean? The process was very difficult for me. And so there's a lot of stuff in there that not in the book that I may have covered in an interview just because it's not relevant to what was going on. The book is really the only account of my relationships of the people I was with while I was in the 20-year time. So there were people that, that hated me, and there were people that loved me. And this book, I really had time to sit, you know what I mean? Like I can't sit in an interview with you guys and say, you know what I mean? My girl, she walked by, I slapped her on her butt and we liked each other. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't do that. And,
why not? You just did.
Well, you know what I'm saying? It's because it makes it awkward.
It's more appropriate for a book form than
in the book, right? In the book, I talk about people in Peru, people that I hung out with, and so the book really has that aspect of it. And the main thing that as we got towards the end of it, the thing that I didn't set out to do that happened was really shocked me. And I realized it towards the end, like in the last couple of weeks before we finished it, was that I really accentuated why I remembered everything. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it was the relationships of people that I didn't want to forget. I wanted to forget everything. You know what I mean? Like when I was up, but the people that I had befriended with, the people that were my friends, I did not want to forget them at the end. And that's what really stands out to me, that the book tells, that I don't ever say in any interview, is that, I was madly in love with somebody, and I had friends, and I had a life. My life went from being, I was suicidal at one point. I just couldn't do it. You know what I mean? For years, I was just, it was horrible. It was a horrible existence. And I got to the point where I had a shred of happiness. That's why it's named the Cavalier, because I actually got in trouble for behaving in a cavalier way, because I was happy. I got to a lifestyle as a slave where I enjoyed my life. Do you get what I mean? Like I overcame all that, and other people didn't like it because they were above me, didn't enjoy their life. And I literally got in trouble, and I got in trouble for cavalier behavior. And that's why it's this book that way. Aaron, you're on with the page you're on. You're not there yet, so I don't want to ruin it. But
yeah,
that's why I chose that. And I say Jackie hated the title at first. She's like, really? No, it sounds terrible. She's like, don't pick that. So
no, it's good.
It's a great title.
It is. And oh damn, what was I gonna say? Oh, so the relationships. I know your book covers that a lot, but you just said you were madly in love with somebody. And so what happens when you get those memories back? I know we've been asked this before, we might have even discussed it, but have you tried to look for any of those people? And have you found any of those people?
Yes.
Yes. And I'm sure you don't want to say too much more than that. I know you don't want to out anyone else, but I was just curious on what that looked like for you.
In the beginning, I did find early on, and I found somebody that I remembered, and they didn't remember. And I told them everything, and we had corresponded for a long time. And it was a little bit, and it was very damaging to them. It was not cool. You know what I mean? Like, I'll leave it like that. Like, this is somebody that had a great life going on, and then now they had to call into question everything they believed. And it's not something that should be pushed on somebody. And I really have a problem with a lot of people that are doing, there are some people out there, I don't even know their name off the top of my head, but they're telling people like, you were involved. And even if somebody's involved and it's not the right thing to do to tell somebody that they were involved. You know what I mean? Like It's damaging. So because their higher self chose to forget, and their higher self will choose to remember. And I had the book explained towards the end, the very end, the last few chapters explain why I was motivated to remember that person that was up there. I wanted to remember. I did not want to forget what had happened, because I had come such a long ways, because I went from a miserable life, a miserable existence, to and I've talked about this before. Like, if somebody is a millionaire and they become a billionaire, it's a huge triumph for them. It's a huge achievement. I was a complete slave, and I got to the point where I had a shred of freedom and I had relationship. You get what I mean? Like It was the same sense of achievement for me. It was a big achievement. I didn't want to forget that. And you know what I mean? Like that was what motivated. So I thought that I would meet people down here and explain that to them. And what I found out was just the opposite, that there's people that don't want to remember. And so I did. And I found most people, believe it or not, most people that have their memories conscious, there's a lot of people that have conscious memories, a great deal of memories. I met one guy that remembers every bit as much as I do about his 20-year tour. And he's got no desire to speak to anybody about any of it. He talked to me privately. He's like, this is between me and you. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to tell my wife or nobody. I don't want anybody to know what I was doing. And a lot of people are like that. A lot of people couldn't be bothered, and they don't want to wear the stigma. You know what I mean? I guess for whatever reason, I just wasn't afraid of it. It's very inconvenient in my day-to-day life. It's very inconvenient to speak about the things that I do. So.
Well, you're doing a service to humanity by exposing all this stuff.
I'm a big fan of disclosure. I'm a big fan of the mission. You're right, Aaron. And I think that's more important than just me or what I go through. I think that, and you know what, this is, wow. The book is the biggest fuck you that little kid that got tortured in Ionosphere could have said to anybody. This is the biggest revenge. This is the only revenge that I could have taken to what happened to me. what happened to me when I was laying there angry. There was people always go, why aren't you so angry? Why aren't you angry, Tony? When, you know, my interviews, you're not angry. It's like, you're so graceful. And the fact is that I had 20 years of anger and 20 more years after I got back of being angry. And this is my revenge. You know what I'm saying? Like, now it's a book. Now it's a book. You're not going to delete it out of your hand. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, to me, it's a very big win.
Yeah, it's a way of like stepping
Exactly.
into your sovereignty also. And, you know, and I totally understand it. And thank you. And you mentioned Inyo Kern real quick. We just had Brad on and he said that you guys were, I don't know where he was, but he's on the phone with you and he was driving through Inyo Kern and he was like showing you something like, I remember that mountain. I used to try and like think about escaping and going there. So it's really interesting that you have like stuff like that happening that like also validates your story. Like, it's not just like you remember seeing that stuff.
Yeah. And it's freaky. I always wait in the beginning, especially the first couple of years. I was like, somebody's going to check this out. I'm going to go to Seattle or whatever it is, and I'll check it out and it won't pan out. And then I can, you know what I mean? Look at some other reason why I remember this, you know, why maybe there's some other reason that I have these memories, but other than it being true. And what's happened is every little thing that I check out like that pans out. And I go, shit, it's real. You know what I mean? Damn.
Right.
And no, it was neat that Brad did that. We talked in Vegas and then he went to Inyo Kern and I think we were on the Facebook mess. It was really grainy, but he put it on video. And it was something else because that's Inyo Kern. I kind of want to go there myself and walk it. And he walked exactly where I was like, no, go up by the bridge, you know, like telling him where to go. And he did. It was freaky. It was a freaky experience for real.
Really?
Wow.
So you know how you mentioned you found that person, you told them everything about and it just flipped their life upside down. And what if, you know, we never know. I was thinking, you know, you said your higher self will basically let you know if you're ready for it now, but what if his higher self wanted you to come and tell him, and that was part of the arrangement? I'm serious. So don't beat yourself up over it, is what I'm trying to say. Because it might have actually been what he signed up for.
Yeah, I mean, there's a free will aspect, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't feel that it's something that should be forced on somebody, you know, like, and even up until now, just after the book's released, now I'm asking people to bring me on their show. Like I said, please come on, you know what I mean? And to drive the algorithm. And the book, there's a money issue about it, but really I just want people to read the book. You know what I mean? There's a lot of information in there that supports other things that are going to lead people. And when I autograph it, I don't autograph them all the same, the pre-orders, but I've been saying stuff like, you know, I hope this book inspires you to keep researching, to keep searching into the subject, because that's really true.
Right.
I really hope that people read this book and and it has breadcrumbs that can connect dots to other things that I might not know about. Mm-hmm. And, but until then, I've only done interviews where people asked me to come on. I've only ever talked about this to people that have asked me, and I found that maybe there's a karma thing about it, but I think that just goes better like that.
Yeah, well, you know how many people are getting their memories back anyway, so it's gonna help. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind it's gonna help trigger something in somebody else, and who knows the type of ripple effect it's gonna have. So I wouldn't even worry about that. But yeah, there's so many aspects of your story that you've mentioned before that I'd like to actually dive just a little deeper into, and maybe you cover them in the book. But in particular, well, we have a couple questions from the chat real quick. Let me address the chat. So Matthew Starseed donated $27.77. Thank you, Journey to Truth Podcast, Matthew. Tony, and all of you in the chat. We're all in this together, and I can't wait to read Tony's new book. See you all at the conference. Oh yeah, we have to talk about the conference too, which Tony's going to be speaking at. And then we got a $11 donation from Mark Beck, 1111. Hi, Tony. Please talk about some of the German terms and phrases you picked up during your service. German is my native language. That's interesting. Is there any of that language that stuck with you?
Not really. I never really had to learn German. We had translator tech. So I do cover some things like just acronyms that they had in the book, like a few acronyms. But I was resentful of them. I wanted to learn Spanish and go back to Peru, where people liked me, and where I believed people liked me. I was kept wanting to learn Spanish. I kept asking them, "Can I learn Spanish so that when I go back, I can go back there?" And they were like, "No, you need to learn German." And it was an option for me. So we would go on missions, and I would go to school. There were times when I would go do a couple hours in school at the end of the day to learn whatever, you know what I mean, like fire suppression and loading techniques and just other stuff. They would constantly training you. And I had the option of learning German, and I refused. And it was kind of like an empowering thing. I was kind of like, I don't want to learn your language. You know, I was angry. They treated me like shit, and then expected me to learn adopt their language, make life easier for them. And because they made it optional, I refused for that reason, you know, but.
Right. So I think I might be mistaken about this, but in one of your interviews, one of them, I think I remember you saying the people were were very interested to know what you dreamt about. Was that you that said that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's something I actually want to expand on, because that tells us a lot about dream space. If they were that concerned about what you guys were dreaming about, there's something to that. And what are your thoughts on that?
So whenever they created the anti-telephone mission away. So there were missions that would leave, not every time, not every day, but most days we did a temporal mission. So they would leave and they would get back 5 minutes away from Ceres at maximum speed, 5 minutes in the past. So we'd leave at 8 o'clock. They'd get back 5 minutes away at 7:55. So 5 minutes before we left. That way they knew the ship made it through the mission. If the ship didn't appear, or if it was all beat up or in the wrong spot, they knew the mission failed and they'd cancel it and we wouldn't leave. And so the ship would immediately disappear. They could see it. They had eyes on it, where if it was there and it was never there at all. You know, if it didn't come back, it didn't come back. And they scheduled really aggressive missions that, you know, it was a very powerful technology to anti-telephone like that. Whenever a mission was scrubbed, they would just scrub our mission. They were like, "You guys are scrubbed. You're staying in the dock today." We stayed at our post and cleaned and caught up on our work. We still had to work. But for the next week, they would debrief us and ask us, "If you have any kind of dreams, we want to know what your dreams are." And because they would get bits and pieces, there were some people that they would get bits and pieces of that failed mission. Like that time still did happen. And they're somewhere in your, maybe not in your body, but somewhere else in wherever your memories are kept outside of the body, the experience is there. And they were trying to glean information of what happened. It was all about intelligence is what they were doing. The other thing is, I don't even know if I covered it in the book. There was a line about it. I'm not sure if it's in there or not, but I had the same on Ceres. So on Mars, it was different, but on Ceres Colony, after a couple years there, I began to have the same dream every single night. And it was, as soon as I went to sleep and I began to dream, the floor, I would dream and see my room that I was in, and the floor would drop out and I would fall into space. And that would be the beginning of all of my dreams, always. It was the same beginning. Like, and then I would go on and have normal dreams about, you know what I mean, just like anybody does. But that was the beginning of all my dreams. 100% was,
wow.
The floor would drop out into empty space and I'd be floating in space. And that was, it was weird, but that was. And then I remember that I would be floating in space dreaming, and I had the experience, and I was like looking for other people that I always wanted to, like, I always wanted friends at that time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't really have any kind of really close friends, and I always was looking for friends. I was like, while I'm out here, is anybody else here? You know, anybody here? And I remember that was a common reoccurring part of that aspect of that dream, the first few minutes. And then it would go into, you know, your normal dream of whatever your normal dream is, you know.
Wow. That's really fascinating. It's like you were shown like your soul leaving your body for the dream. Like, they say we're always attached with that etheric cord all the time, and your body can just like slingshot back into your body at any moment. But that was like showing you a version of leaving. And that so the building I was in, the gravity was coming out of the floor. There was artificial gravity. So it was kind of like, once I got out of that, then I went out into space. Like, it was basically, Ceres is essentially a dead planet. There are things, I don't think there's not it's dead. So it's a different, there's no magnetic field or anything like that. What we have here. I think there's a document, there's info that says that when you dream,
that we all kind of communicate each other, but it's like radio signals bounce off the ionosphere, and when you're dreaming, your mind gives off signals, and we all kind of communicate in the ionosphere somewhere. Like that's as far as we go.
Right.
There's a document somewhere about that.
Yeah, there's a document somewhere.
There's somewhere about that.
Yeah,
it's on my website. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. I just I'm glad you covered that, because I had been thinking about that. I'm like, why did they want to know about his dreams? What was so important? But they were wanting to see if there was any like residual memory.
Right. They were trying to find out what happened in those failed missions, and they actually did. So I never had any kind of information to give them. Like really, I wanted to, because you got pulled out of work for a minute to get debriefed in the morning. You could report it, and there were people that did. 3 or 4 people that were like, I had a dream about a mission last night, and they were like, come with us, and they would go through a long debrief, and they could miss work. And so I wanted to, but I just never did.
Right. So fast forwarding to the part of your story whenever you talk to the psychic on Ceres.
Okay.
Tell me everything about that, because well, it's interesting because your time in Peru and how you were used for that, and it seems like the person or this ET or whatever that was doing the reading for you, did it seem like they were being used also in that position?
Like it was exactly the same technology. That's why I knew. That's why I had to do it. I walked by. It was on my way out of the hangar, and there was a small, like a town area, and I would walk by, and they had big TV screens on the wall that showed videos of it that would get your reading. And I remember walking by it and not paying attention. When I looked, it was first it was like a beautiful girl with an IV bag that they put in, like in the commercial. It was a beautiful woman with an IV bag, and they did that, and then she went under, and she was like giving somebody, it was a commercial. And I looked at it, I went, that's exactly what they did to me. That's real. You know what I mean? I was like, that's exactly what I was doing in Peru. The exact same technique. So and I was like, oh my God. So I went back the next day, a couple of days later, when I got paid, and I took money out of the bank to cover it. It was like $45 francs, and I went back and got the reading because I knew. And when I got in there, it was not a beautiful girl. In fact, it was a young, half human, like a hybrid species, it was a young girl that was half gray, half human. She had human hair, like a gray with human hair, straggly, and not, very. It was a miserable condition. It was a terrible thing to witness, the way that they kept these kids. And it was really cheesy. Like they didn't have, it wasn't a fancy place. Like they set up curtains, and they were on a cot with a chair next to them with their IV and a little computer screen with curtains around it in a small little room. It was disgusting. And I went in there and he's like, you get 3 questions. You're going to get three questions. And the first 2, I was just asked, if I was going to know Marie when I went back. Am I going to marry Marie? Basically, essentially, was the first one. And then, am I going to know what's going to go on? And then she told me I was going to remember. She said, you're a witness. And the way she talked was really cryptic, as anybody, as I'm sure most of the audience knows how psychics can be, especially when you're in a trance, like in a deep state, that it's very kind of cryptic, but it made a lot of sense. And then the third thing, she said a bunch of other stuff that I didn't get, you know what I mean? But she was talking about one of the 3 girls, and the way that she worded it was, the one of the 3, possibly 2, possibly, it was like a riddle, the way that she worded it to me about the 3 girls. And then I went from there straight to crumbs, and it was a slow day. And there were 3 girls, the friends that were there working, that sat at my table, and we were talking. I was telling them about it. And Marie was pissed off that I spent the money on it. So that's in the book. Trying to think of anything else that, you know what I'm saying, like in that scene.
So the reason, it's curious because I had, first of all, the movie Total Recall, if you've seen that, they depict exactly that. If they're on Mars, and there's a TV screens, like,
yes.
And then there's a psychic girl who kind of looks maybe like deformed or miserable. And
So her
It's
face wasn't like that, but her hair was,
right.
if that makes sense. And it was not like that in the sense of where it was. Like the scene that I see in my head is completely different than the Total Recall. It's
Yeah, yeah. I'm not saying
great.
that you
It's
stole it
great
from
that they
them.
have that. Right. But
Well,
and it wasn't like that, you know.
yeah.
It's hard to really articulate it. The difference. It was very dark. The way that they kept it, it was like in a night area. That's like Ceres had places that stayed night all the time where they never cranked the lights up. They had big town squares that would fake daylight. They would turn the lights up and it would be like day, but this was in an area in between that usually was dark. And it was like that. It was like a man, not a I don't know what district you would call it, like a club district part,
Right.
you know, in between. And yeah, she wasn't like that. She was like a gray that had human hair, that didn't have that dark color, more like human colored skin, but basically the face of a gray.
So
And
did you encounter a lot of hybrids in the programs, like as far as like specific races, obviously, but like could you tell like there was a half dog man or something walking around, you know?
so we always thought that when whenever we went to somewhere and people interacted, like we didn't personally see them, but the people on the ship would interact, and then it would the rumor would get all the way through the ship. You know what I mean? Like saw this guy looked like a goat kind of thing. And there were a lot. So that's kind of like a way of life out there that us, there's so many different versions of us that are just like us. They're people, you know. I mean, we openly refer to it, and I still do refer to them as people. It doesn't matter what it is. It's a certain level of intelligence. So I was directed to not interact with ETs. Basically, that was the when I was out and about in the colony, I was not supposed to interact with ETs. If I saw one, I was supposed to ignore it and not interact, because I was a slave, and I could misrepresent humanity. You know what I mean? Saying I was a damaged person. So that they just
Yeah.
that's the rule. Just don't talk to them. Just don't even stare at them. But you did see them. And hybrids, I'd have to say no. I don't remember seeing many hybrids. And in fact, I remember that girl, when I saw that girl, that I was a little freaked out by it, that I thought it was kind of unnatural, because most of the ETs I'd seen to that point were not half one, half another. They were whatever race they were. They were not a mix. And we were aware that there are natural. So it didn't happen there. It wasn't allowed on Ceres Colony, but we were aware that in other colonies in space, other planets, that there are natural pairings that have hybrid children between certain species. Like it is possible for a human to marry another species and have a hybrid child. We were aware that there are lots of species that is possible, and that does go on. We did talk about that all the time. And like I said, we always bragged about my girlfriend's blue. I got a blue girlfriend. I'm going to go see my girl today. She's blue. She's bright blue, because they were very xenophobic, and it's against the law. There were blue species that were in the solar system, either inner Earth or somewhere else in our solar system, that we did business with, and they were very xenophobic. Like they were like, you couldn't talk to their girls. There was like totally off limits for them to be with anybody other than their own species. So we joked about that all the time, that's my girl,
So
Nice.
did anybody did they ever go ahead, Aaron? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, real quick. Sammy Starlight wants to know if your book's going to be available on Amazon Kindle.
It will. So we are working on that now. So there are things like we figured it out. I got to tell you, Jackie is absolutely brilliant, and she really took the reins in the very end when we were going through the formatting part of the book. After we did the editing, and she did a great deal of work editing it. And that's why it's so readable, because there's so many times that she sent me a message and said, "What is this? I don't even understand what you're talking about here." And it slipped my mind, because me talking about it is not the same as carrying what it reads like to somebody. And she came back and read it and said, "No, you got to explain that better." And we did a lot of that, and it makes it readable. But
Nice.
We are working on the Kindle one. We had to learn about the formatting. It took us a couple tries. We were going to format like on the 29th, and it took us to the 31st and the 1st actually to get it up it took us a few tries and graphics and everything. Like it was the first time. So we're
Okay.
going through that process on the Kindle. It's slightly different. I'd like to get a hardcover copy and offer it for a little bit, but I don't know. We're going to do that.
Cool.
And like I said, there'll be a second revision that'll get some mistakes that we made. We'll get those out of there and get a smaller print on the second revision.
So back to the blue women. So were you serious that none of them ever were able to break away and date like a human, or did some?
Absolutely, it was punishable by death in their culture, and so and there are several. So that's let me say that it's not just this one. It was this culture that I'm talking about was one that did business with the Ceres Colony Corp. So we did business with them, and they were, you know what I mean. They used us as like a middleman to trade with other people because they're very xenophobic culture. I believe they were located. They had one facility inner Earth, and I believe they had other facilities elsewhere in the solar system that we did business with. The other thing is, they were aware. So there was a conversation I had that they were aware that because they were blue, they lived longer. Like just the color blue, they had a better healing thing, and they said that. Man, I forget the term, but it's like even thinking about them helped them heal. Like there's something about it. There was like a esoteric, like a psychic phenomenon around it, so that when you thought about one, you were actually helping it.
Wow.
I'm not explaining it. I'm going to butcher this. There's really no way I'm going to explain this. Right. I've already butchered it. But it was like part of the deal. Like just naturally being a blue color for them was like a blessing. Like there's some kind of mechanics of the universe that help them. And they lived much longer. Even their own species, they had other members of their own species that were a different color, the same way that we do. The blue ones tended to live longer.
And I'm assuming you don't remember a name for that race.
I don't.
Right. Yeah. Actually, it's funny whenever I have dreams and experiences, like I can tell you everything except for names and faces. Like it's just, they're not there for me. So, yeah. And
it's
I think
a part of the brain. It's a different part of the brain. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when in your interview with Sala, and I know you've said this before, whenever you were being taken to the moon and you saw the Douglas patch logo on what was it, Douglas Airspace or what it was?
Douglas Aircraft. Yeah.
Aircraft. On the back of the seat. And then the guy told you, you asked why. Explain that story, because I have a follow-up question.
Sure. Well, I went from Ionosphere when I was young. When I was 10 years old, I rode a similar craft, not the same craft. I thought it was the same craft, but it wasn't. A similar one to the moon over just one night and then back again. So there and back. But I rode on it. I knew that we went to the moon. And so I always knew there was a base on the moon from a young age. Then later on, after Seattle, I was like 16. So 6 years later, they sold me off to the military, and I ended up back on the same craft. And the seats hadn't changed. It said Douglas, just like it did. And the guy that chaperoned me was a Navy or Air Force officer, military guy, sitting next to me. And he remarked on it, said, they don't even have this name anymore. This isn't even them anymore. So the craft was older. And I said, I wrote on this. I was like bragging about it. Like I wrote on it back when it was new. I mentioned that to him. I wrote on this when it was new. And he goes, no, you didn't. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, they don't even, this is old. And then he got in, he was like, and then he showed me the logo. And then he showed me another logo, and he said, you know what this means? And I said, I don't know. They're shooting a missile at the moon. It's a missile. You know what I mean? Like everything was doom and gloom to me back then.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, hang on. And he went through his bag and he looked at it for like, it felt like forever. He looked through his bag 3 or 4 times. Like he just kept fumbling, and he got out a very old piece of paper that had some like just numbers on it. And it had the very old Douglas logo, and it was an airplane going to the moon. And I said, this is us on this plane. You know, like that's what this is. We're going to the moon. And he said, we've been going to the moon a lot. This thing is a lot older than you think it is. And we've been going to the moon a long time. You know, like he explained that to me, that
right.
It was a very old, I thought it was a younger plane than what it was. I thought the craft was.
What year would that have been when he told you that?
86, 87, 87, 88, right in there. 87, 88, right in that range. So the plane was old already by then. It was a very old craft.
So, and then you said it had since been changed to McDonnell Douglas.
They were bought out by then. I checked. And so this was another thing that Jackie didn't want me to include in the book. She said there's a copyright issue. And I checked with a few other people. And because Douglas doesn't exist anymore, I figured it's not an issue,
Yeah.
But they were bought over and became McDonnell Douglas. But before that, they were first around the world in Douglas aircraft. It wasn't until the Sala interview that he goes, yes, Douglas aircraft did early with the Gemini program. And they were working, the CIA was hiring Douglas to build spacecraft in the early, like in the 50s.
That's
so
what
I
William,
didn't know that.
Yeah, William Tompkins talks about that in his book. He worked think tanks in Douglas,
Yeah, I didn't know that. I was unaware of that.
Right.
And so I wanted to put it in the book just because of the logo, because the logo really, that's what that means. He explained that to me when I came across it years ago. And I remembered the logo, that whole conversation. I wanted to put that in the book because it kind of puts a timestamp on the U.S. presence on the back of the moon and showing that we had antigrav. That was an antigrav craft, so
yeah. So that's my follow-up question is, okay, we know that. How long has this been going on? Not us going to the space, but the actual 20 and back program. I know you probably don't have an exact answer. William Tompkins, in his book, he talks about being on the age regression end of the 20 and back. He was in the think tanks that were figuring out how to do it. And he said the Navy in particular started their 20 and back program in 1980. But I don't know it's definitely had to been going on way before that. When do you think it might have actually started?
I think we talked about it and everybody's aware. It's like one of the very first things that an ET race trades. So when your planet figures out space travel and you get into your near orbit and you come across an ET, the first thing that everybody does is beg them for info. Give me some info. Do you guys got anything that'll help me out here? We just made it to space. Give me some tech. What can I trade you for some technology? Can I have your laser beam kind of thing? The very first thing that a brand new species does when they get into space is ask for more technology. And the very first thing that they get is the 20 and back tech. That's the very first. It's like a universal thing. It's life extension. Who wouldn't pay big through the nose for that? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's a life extension tech that they just give across the board. So they've been doing it for millions of years. It's been forever.
Wow.
So that means that the Germans, when they got up into space, that was one of the first. So back in, you're talking the 30s or 40s, that the Germans began doing it. And probably there are several different versions of it. I'm sure that the one that I experienced, the one that Tompkins talks about, the ones that we have, is not the only way to do that. I think there's more than one way to carry out that tech. Well, and there's other life extension. And I talk about that in the book. There's a scene in the book, Aaron, you're not there on your page yet, but there's another scene in there where we went again. So there's a separate tech there. That's how I know there's more than one way to do it, because we were in fact sold off to another program for 10 years in the middle of the 20 years. Yeah. And that'll be covered extensively in the second book. I left that in there for that reason, because it's a lot more, because that experience is a lot more woo. You know what I mean? If you know what I'm talking about, it's way more woo than this. This book is more of like an autobiographical account and kind of like a witness account. The next book that explains that 10 years and how that happened and how I got back from that is really more spiritual, and it probably why I'm at where I'm at. And I said that in the Sala interview too. I don't think I could have made it this far without help. Even the night I was taken, I think that sphere that came in was not them. I think it was somebody else. And I think that because I went on that program, I inspired somebody to, a friend in high place to help me out through all this. And that's kind of why I'm where I'm at, because I don't feel, I've had a lot of things happen, you know what I mean? Just randomly that helped me along the way to get to sit here in front of you guys tonight. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't do it.
I totally get that. And the synchronicity, it's not random, it's synchronicity, what we call it, there's no coincidence, just too many things lined up just to help you along, nudge you along, whatever it might be. make something fall into place. They line things up for you, or it's your higher self doing it.
We'll see. I'll touch on it. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot I haven't figured out yet about it. And,
Right.
but I would gotta be crazy to think that I just stumbled across and talk about all this stuff like the way I do, as much as I do. And, still, you know what I'm saying? Like have,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm not even gonna say anything bad. I'm not even gonna speak anything bad, but you know what I'm saying? Like, but I've been very fortunate since
Right.
I've been public. I do want to say this, on a side note, I want to say that the public response to the book is surprising. And so the book, what it is, the book is really triggering. A lot of people really enjoy it and they read right through it and they find it, you know what I'm saying? I'm getting a lot of public remarks like on my Facebook posts, and people sending me emails like, thank you, blah, blah, blah. I read the book quickly. Good job. Attaboy. I'm getting a lot of attaboys. I'm also getting people that are triggered. I've had 2 today, people that are like, I was recently raped. Ooh. And I'm reading your book and would help me. Like I'm getting that. Like I've got a couple of those. I've had other people that read the book that broke down into tears and had a complete meltdown. And I've had other people that read the book and they especially after Seattle, where they said, look, I had to put it down because I wanted to go beat somebody's ass. And, like people are having emotional triggering things, like, because I'm not the only person in the world that's had any kind of traumatic event. And when they read the book, they're reliving their own too. It's a reflection of that. And there was a lot of things that I suffered through, but during the time I thought, you know what I'm saying? Like that was just my life. That was my life. So I wasn't, you know what I mean? I wasn't sitting around, thinking why couldn't this be like this? I just thought that's what life was,
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm starting to get a lot of that, and I really kind of dumbfounded because I don't know how to react when people do tell me that, like, help me. Where do I go with this? And I'm like, I sorted out all these feelings many years ago, and so it's something that I gotta now. That's something that it's like a new challenge from speaking about my
right. Well, it's also not like don't take on all that pressure either. Like it's not your responsibility to help every single person heal that reaches out to you, as much as you might want to, because you'll drain yourself. Yeah, it's like an energy thing.
Way too late for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But well, you know what I mean? Like as a human, you want to help people out, anybody that's a decent human. But I am starting to learn that there's only so much of me that goes around. Like I'm really overwhelmed lately because now I've got to sign all these copies and mail them. But I'm working at just whittling it down. I feel very fortunate to do so.
Right. Well, and we're fortunate and grateful to have you on the show for the sixth time.
Number 7 will be we'll see.
So you're on Diego Garcia and you're getting a load of cargo to take to another planet then the species on this planet doesn't believe in aliens, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is extremely fascinating to me. Can you tell that story and just kind of elaborate on it a little bit more?
So that's another thing Elena posted a picture of some UFO on her Facebook, and she tagged me and said, Tony, is this what you remember? And I said, yes, that's the same color, and that's kind of the shape that they were, but it's way smaller. It's a small one. It's not like the one that I was on. They were, and I've always described the ship the Max von Laue, as like a stealth bomber shape and color. It was that because they had radar, they were stealth technology. They were invisible to radar for that reason, to go to these planets that are, like us back in the 80s, that we have radar, or us back in the 50s. And they could come in with stealth and interact with their militaries or whoever and do business secretly. So that was the case. We flew in under radar, and then they had to stay out to sea because they had other, observation posts and things. And we took an LCAC, basically a hovercraft, a large Marine Corps, Navy hovercraft that they modified. They cut some of the down out of the center of it. They cut it in half, and they cut a section out of the center and then welded it all back together. So it was more skinny than it would have normally been. So it would fit in our cargo bay. And it took them a while. They craned it in and they lowered it down with cranes, and we all rode it in. And it was half hour ride from the ship. He gave us all watches to keep track of the time because it was a temporal mission. We only had so much time we had to get back. There's something about the tech on that end of it. And we rode into a swampy area and onto an island or a peninsula. And he was like like an Asian face, gray, like with the smaller eyes and with whiskers, and his body was more like a rat human, like a cross between a rat and a human, and small, like a really thick, really weird clothes, like a burlap uniform. And he was like an old man of his race. And he talked with it. The translator didn't really work well with him, so he had a weird dialect that he talked. And he was very easygoing. He was like super chilled and laid back about everything. And he was trying to make money on the side. He was trying to broker a deal between him and a few people in his branch of the military. They were trying to sell off some ore or some a metal, a resource that they had. They were trying to sell it off and make money on the side. They didn't really want spaceships. They wanted cash. I think that was what he was after. And it was a setup, and they were setting them up.
Okay, so that just goes to show you, like, Earth, it's not the only place like that, And so these people, I guess their government knew about the space program, obviously, but the surface people didn't. Is that?
That's right. It was kind of the same situation. It was a planet that was like us back in the 80s, where it's kind of, they were on the verge of space flight, kind of, and they were beginning to do business. And I think that the Orion group, that we were there on behalf of the Orion group. So Jason Rice and I talked on the phone about this quite a bit, and he said, no, that's exactly the playbook. They'd send guys like you in. They would send a ship like yours in to do business, and then walk on the deal and make it look like, they were the bad, like they screwed up something. And then they would come in, or, you know what I mean? Like they would go in and set up a deal, and it would fail. And then later they would come with the military, and they would actually take over elements of their government. They would begin a takeover of the planet.
Oh,
he said that's exactly, he's like, that was like the opening move that the Orion group does, is they begin trade. They send trade ships in, and then, to try to entice them and see who they could get away with, who was bribable and who wasn't. And he said, that's really what it sounds like you were doing. And I said, well, I don't know, man. I was just measuring boxes to see how many would fit on the hovercraft per load that we could take on the ship. They sent me there to come up with a number of trips back and forth. That's the whole reason I went on that trip. And, but that was, Jason Rice said that was in their playbook on how they would, in fact, invade worlds.
Well, that sounds kind of like what probably happened here. I mean,
yeah. Well, I think that we're in a hub, and I think our invasion happened long ago. You know what I mean? Like, I think it happened a long time ago, and we're actually the leftovers of something that happened probably 20,000 years ago, or whenever. Or
probably even further back than that, to be honest. What was I going to say? What were we just talking about? The help me.
Diego Garcia.
No, but right before that, the Jason Rice, help me. I'm trying to think, because
I don't know your next question.
Jason Rice, what were you just
talking about? How they would take over worlds.
Okay. Right. So
playbook.
That's where I was going with this. Sorry, guys. Brain fart. It probably happened here long ago, but what about, like, I think it might have happened similar to that with our U.S. military at some point, our U.S. government at some point. Like maybe the Great Treaty, that we hear about, to allow them to abduct us in exchange for their technology. That seems like a bribe to me. And then obviously they just neglected their end of the deal. So something like that makes me wonder if that was the Orion group,
Yeah, well, I think it's more local to our area. And, like I said, I think our situation, because of where we're at, because Jupiter and all that's going on around Jupiter, I think the Earth is kind of like a side stage to that. It's not like one of these distant worlds that is kind of far away from everything, that they're kind of going in and knocking them out. That, like, they took over the important parts of of the galaxy first, or nearby galaxies. Like we kind of have important real estate where we're at because of the portal system that's around Jupiter and what's around Jupiter. So we're a busy system out of all the systems in this neck of the woods. So they took us over long ago, and now they're going out to those more obscure worlds, and they just have a playbook. It's a cookbook on how to go in planetary domination. You know, it's like that's how they do.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But there's a cleanup going on right now.
Yeah, that's right.
The mini. So
well, and I think that a lot of it has to do with the planet has to submit too. I think that the populace on a scale, on a mass scale, on a subconscious level, has to submit to being taken over. You know, it's kind of what, and that's also what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Now, because we are going into it. We came into the information age, and we were not in it. And think about it, though. People weren't thinking about the stuff that we talk about right now, and especially at the rate we're doing with a live chat and hundreds of people watching, and then thousands of people and tens of, what I'm saying? Like thousands of people didn't talk about this stuff ever before the internet, and before, they had a few people that
you gathered in person somehow. Yeah.
A few people at conventions, and those are people that are already kind of, if you go to a convention, the convention crowd is people that have time and money. You know what I'm saying? It's not the average everyday American that's hard at work raising their kids. So that's the masses are like that. They don't have time to visit all the conventions and really pick up books and sit and read books. So now that we're in the information age, it's proliferating, and on a subconscious level, we're affecting each other. You know what I mean? Like there's a planetary hive mind that we subscribe to that picks our destiny. So we're at a point, and lo and behold, here we are. 10 years after we got the info that the masses got the info. Here we are talking about being liberated, and that we're seeing big changes happen. We're seeing disclosure, and we're going back to the moon and etc. Like it's all happening quick because the information age is basically the genie's out of the bottle. And maybe it's no coincidence that Tyler. So maybe this is when I talk about that planet being back in the 80s, it was pre-internet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they were before their internet. They had space travel and no internet. So maybe that's no coincidence. That's when they step in and try to take it over. That's why that we were there when we were there. And the captain was like, I didn't understand why, but the captain was obsessed with time on that mission. So much so that he gave me a wristwatch.
Really?
I had a little drawer in my room, in my, whatever you want to call it, that I had a bunk bed and and there was a little tiny drawer with a like a little desk that was just on the wall. And for years, I mean, I'm talking 10 years, I never had anything to put in it. Sometimes I had a piece of paper that, here's your paper, take that to your class tomorrow in your first day of class. Sometimes I would put a piece of paper in that drawer, but I finally had a watch. I had literally a Casio G-Shock that the captain issued us because we all had to keep, and I said, why am I getting a watch? And he said, well, in case you get separated from us, you know what time it is. And in case we all lose our watch, you'll have a watch. It's a bag. He was like, it was a redundant. It was that important to him. He said, we must be on time leaving. Otherwise the mission won't happen. And there'll be catastrophic results, for the colony. He's like, it'll be catastrophic for his career and everything. So the time was a big deal. And maybe we were time traveling to that time. I don't know.
That's what I mean? That's the feeling I'm getting. Like, because you hear about, like, I don't know if you know about the Project Serpo mission where, they all their time devices didn't even work on that planet because that planet operated. Their days were longer. Everything was different. And so like they lost track of how they were supposed to be there for 10 years. They thought they were, but they realized they were there for 13 years because their time is different. So I wonder if the time is different like that on each planet. So it was like super strict that you guys were all on the same time. So nobody got off of that.
I forget. I think Ceres was on like a 20-hour day. So we're on a 24-hour day. They were on a 20-hour day. But because we left and came back at the same time, I had an extra 8 hours. So it was really a 28-hour day for us in the flight crew. But like the guys that were running in the mines and the people that were living there, they had a 20-hour day, the way that they had it set up. And it was about some optimal physiology. I don't know why they picked it like that,
Yeah,
but
because
it was a shorter day than the Earth, and it was an artificial day too. Like I said, it was all basically governed. They turned the lights on, and it was daytime, and everybody was, that's when a business is opened, and then they turned the lights out, and it was evening. It would get dim, and then the lights would be dark, and it'd be nighttime. So that was artificial, but they had a 20-hour clock. It was like 20 and 10 minutes or something. It was weird the way
wow.
whatever reason they figured that out. I don't know why.
I mean, yeah, I don't know either, but that seems like that would throw off the whole 20 years, like, because you're
Well, no, and so I've talked about this too, because I really believe that when it ended for me, like at the moment that it ended, like, so whatever, they called me Jerry. My name was Jerry up there. When Jerry got sent back, when I went back to the moon and went through the regression program and got my memories erased and sat there, and whatever the process was, when it ended, I realized it. And it was in the year 2000 for me. So I was taken in 82. And in the year 2000, I woke up one day in my bed. Where was I living? I was in Ypsi. I lived in Ypsilanti. Woke up in my bed literally in the morning, and I felt like $1 million. And I went, it's over. I kept saying it over and over again. It's over. It's over. And I didn't know why. And I was happy as shit. It was like, I immediately, a lot of things that were a challenge for me, all the emotional problems that I had, all the anger issues, everything just was like that person died, and I could feel it. And I was back to myself again, rather than being diluted between two minds for those years. It's hard to explain. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to explain, but that's what it felt like for me. But when I did the math on that, it's only 18 years.
I was just going to say that's 18 years. Yeah.
So because I was doing those flights, though, because I was doing the flights where I was going back, I did the math on that. And it's like 7 years of 5 a day, 5 a week of 8 hours, 7 years. And it was probably 8 years that I was on doing that, because we didn't do all of them. And the math checked out that it takes off about 2 years. So that I did, it was years ago. It was 5-6 years ago I did the math, but
right.
I did, and it actually did support it. It actually did work out.
Nice.
So you mentioned earlier something about the portals and Jupiter, and it just made me think, did you ever encounter any portals or jump rooms or anything we hear like a lot of these other guys talking about? Did you use any of those?
Well, I think the train from Mars to Ceres, when I went from Mars to Ceres, was one of those, like a jump. It was a train.
Okay,
It was a train. And you went into a tunnel, and there was it wasn't a flash of light, but there's a poof. You know what I mean? Like poof, and you get disoriented, ears ringing, and you kind of feel disoriented. And then you could feel the train slowing down immediately. And boom, it came to a stop, and I was on Ceres Colony. Like, they didn't tell me what was going to happen. The other thing is that they said you had to drink water immediately, or you could develop some kind of problem. Your electrolytes were screwed up. You had to immediately have water. And other people, after I've said that and talked about other people I've seen, have said the same thing. A few other experiencers said that they've been through jump rooms and they had to have water afterwards. So as far as like, I'm familiar with the story. Is it Andrew Bashago?
Yeah.
The jump room in El Segundo. The jump
LA.
room there.
Yeah.
The one in LA. Yeah. I listened to that story a few years ago, and it seemed to describe a lot of how it was. The other thing is the reptile on the moon said that that's how he went home. He went home to his planet every day. And he said that it was 30 minutes, took him 30 minutes. So it would jump, and then however it worked out, it was a 30-minute ride for him in an elevator.
So there's jump rooms coming in from all sorts of planets onto the moon or whatever, and probably on Earth,
Well, and then so the other thing is what I remember, and this is something that maybe somebody can check out later on when you guys go into space, and post disclosure, is that it was dependent on power output. So they could make a jump room that would go from here to the moon on a certain level of power, petawatts, or I forget the one, like terawatt, whatever it is, the wattage of the output of the generator, whatever the power was, that it needed a certain amount. And to go very far, they needed one that was super powerful. And the moon had an existing power supply that enabled it to make jumps to go, like it was classified and You had like, they had to go to the moon. Like Ceres Colony had their own jump rooms, but they wouldn't go far. They had to fly to the moon to jump to certain other places to use that tech. And the ships were the same way. The battleships could jump farther and faster than our ship could. Our ship could jump, but only so far. It would take 2 or 3 jumps to get across the galaxy, for instance, whereas the warships could go in one jump because they had way more power output. Everything across the board is about power output in that society. It's not about free energy. The energy's free. Like imagine if you can make a free energy generator, it's no big deal. It's worthless if all it does is charge a cell phone. If it has a small power output, big deal if it's free. We need a generator that can power LA. You know what I'm saying? And we're talking about on these ships, they could power the planet, half the planet on their free. And that was a technology that was dependent on rare elements that are not found in our region of space. So they had to actually lease those, purchase those, or make deals to borrow those from other species. It was still guarded the same way that oil is to us today. That was the situation with energy up there, that yes, you can build your spaceship. Yes, you can build your own disk that can jump and go to the nearest star, but you can't build one that's going to kick ass. You have to, you know what I'm saying? You can't, to get the really high power output stuff, that was still a very guarded tech.
Wow. Those are details I hadn't heard. And very crucial, actually.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, that's what we're moving into. That'll be the next era that we move into post-disclosure is, everybody's like, we're going to get free energy. So it's the end of worrying about energy. That's not the end of it. We're going to get free energy and we're going to need more. That's all that's going to be is more gizmos that we can design off more output. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's really, when you look at,
it'll be way better, obviously, than what we have now.
Well, yeah. We're totally under the yoke of an economical yoke because we have to pay for energy now.
And we're not raping and destroying the planet by
and it's not sustainable. We have an unsustainable energy source. Not sustainable. Well, at the same time, they don't want to give you time travel either. You know what I mean? In the same breath of free energy, but we will get free energy. We will get free energy, and that'll open up the door to many new devices that we can use.
Oh yeah.
Like I always say that, like when you look at Iron Man in the movies. Mm-hmm. Like he's got free energy, but really the deal is he's got massive power output in his free energy. It's not just a battery. You couldn't build an Iron Man suit with a DeWalt battery with not enough power. He's got massive power, and that's the same exact dynamic of the space programs. That some of them have a much more power output than another one, and that's the ship that's going to kick ass. And that's what I mean. So they guard that. Yeah. So that's going to be our lifestyle after post-disclosure.
Sure. And it makes perfect sense. I was talking about the way, what do you call it? Jumping, light speed, whatever, of jumps. Mm-hmm. Just the way, like, you needed more power to make a longer jump. I had never thought about that before. Like, I just thought it was a tech you can put on any ship, and like, I see how it works now. So that would make sense why they need them 4 kilometers long.
And that, right. Well, and not only that, but that's why they need the natural portals to jump to other galaxies, because they can't make one with enough power to go from one galaxy to the other. They'd have to jump so many times. It would still take 1,000 years. So they use natural portals to go to other galaxies. Like the one portal by Jupiter, I think it went to like 18 other galaxies or 20 other galaxies. And then from there, they can find other natural portals and go to 18 different more galaxies. And that's how they were doing that. They have to use natural portals for intergalactic travel, and they could jump themselves. Like I said, it was like 3 jumps for us to get in the Milky Way, around our galaxy. It was like took 3 stops. And they would have to wait a few minutes in between each one for it to like charge up.
It's literally like Star Trek. I mean, exactly what you're talking about. And, we always talk about us becoming a Star Trek civilization. So actually we already are. We're just all under.
We're just locked up out of it.
Yeah. We're just hypnotized.
They are, and we're locked out right now.
Right. But the planet as a whole already is exactly what you're talking about. We're capable of everything. It probably would blow people away, and things we can't even imagine, like inner Earth alone is fascinating to even think about how massive that actually would be. And if it's fully, whatever it looks like, we have no clue what's happening here.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and then I've heard that from people that are skeptical when they see my interviews. They're skeptical. They're like, come on, man, no way. Where would they hide all this stuff? And I'm thinking, have you been out into the world? You know what I mean? Like, it would be very easy. You could build if you don't have a satellite looking down on the Earth, then you could hide a city anywhere you want. Like, there's plenty of places. There are thousands and thousands of miles of planet surface. Before you talk about water, there are thousands and thousands of miles that nobody sets foot on. Yeah, that there's nobody going to.
Underground.
And then you go underground on top of that. Well, then all of the bodies in the solar system have underground. They're building underground, and not to hide from us, but to hide from other ETs. The Earth is protected. There's an agreement around the Earth. There's an etiquette around populated planets, but the colonies that are in the system, in the solar system, are underground because it's a camouflage for that reason.
Well, yeah, just natural protection. So do you ever get people asking you or coming to you or complaining to you that or telling you that you're lying because we can't go to space? Do you ever get those people?
I'm working on a thing. I'm slowly gathering some info on the ways to prove the world is round kind of thing. So there's that. It's a shame because to buy into flat Earth means you discount a lot of physics. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that work out that you totally throw out the window in order to believe the flat Earth. But I get skeptics all the time.
Nature doesn't make flat. That's the thing that they don't understand.
But it's not even the flat earthers. Some people think space is fake.
Oh yeah, well the Van Allen belts. I get that a lot. The people what'd you do about the radiation in the Van Allen belts?
Yeah,
we went right through it. Number one. Number two,
you go right through it. It's nothing. Yeah.
Well, number two, we were only going to be in those bodies for 20 years, so they didn't give a shit if we got cancer because you would just die and go back. You know what I mean? Like, they were going to regress you and go back. And I think it was a clone body anyway. So they would that whole body could have been destroyed. They would just kill it off. They didn't care. Like the medical science, any kind of radiation, because if you think the Van Allen belts have a lot of radiation, that's nothing compared to what Jupiter is putting out. Like, Jupiter is the most radioactive body in the solar system after the sun. I think the magnetic field around Jupiter is bigger than the one from the sun, if I'm saying that right, or as big. It's like the biggest thing in the sky is the magnetic field around Jupiter. It's highly radioactive around it, but they gave zero shits about it in the space program because they've solved that. They have shielding, and then they have medical technology. If you get sick from it, they'll just fix you. So that was not an issue, but I do get that a lot from skeptics. We have pictures from space. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it sucks that you really can't live. I mean, you guys see it. We're all Facebook friends, Tyler. Like, I watch you and Aaron, I see your stuff. How good they are at faking pictures. There's all kinds of stuff. You can tell it's fake. Like, they can put your face on a crime scene and make it look believable. You know what I'm saying? Which is why, the net result is that it's not admissible anymore. That pictures are worthless now. Pictures are totally worthless because they can go down to a minuscule, like 1 pixel, and tint it slightly, and they can build anything they want in a movie. And so that means all the video evidence we ever get is thrown out the window. So that's what the anti-space people kind of beat us up with, that say, oh, it's a fake picture, even though it's like a 4K, like super high def, International Space Station live feed of the tsunami. You know what I mean? We're getting pictures like that. So, but they still don't. It's not evidence to them.
Right. Well,
we're going back though. We're gonna go back. We're gonna get live. We're going to get a live camera now. So when we went to the moon in the 60s and 70s, people couldn't tune in from their internet, right?
Right.
So we're going to go back. Imagine they're going to have live feeds from the moon here in a couple years, in 26.
I believe it. I believe it.
We're going to have that in a minute.
Yeah. Well, I've said for a long time, like, a UFO could land in my front yard and the ET could walk out. I could film it in 4K and put it online, and 100% of people are going to say it's fake. Not because, for one, it's going to look too good, and for two, they just don't believe it. It would never happen. It's outside of their belief system, so it's threatening to them, and there's just no room for that.
Yep. Well, they think, here's what it is. They think that that's the right answer. They think that the guy next to them is going to say the same thing. So, you know what I'm saying? Like the masses, basically, they're saying, oh, I don't believe in that stuff, because they think that if they're in a party of 25 people, they think that all the rest of the party, that's what they're going to say. If they thought that everybody else in the party is going to say, yes, it's a inclusion. It's a sales technique called inclusion. And they feel like they want to be included in being a debunker, because they think that everybody's a debunker now.
Yeah,
so
and
that's slowly changing.
Oh, if I let people know I think this is real, or oh wow, I'm fascinated by it, then I look stupid to the skeptics, or the most people are going to be skeptical. You know, yeah, it's all psychological ego.
There's
all that.
You know, I haven't been hyper attacked by skeptics, and but I have. There's been a few, and most of the ones that waste their time doing it are not great at it. But I mean, really, if somebody wanted to go through it, really, if they spent the money and went through all my interviews and caught me putting my foot in my mouth a million times, because I'm just talking about off the cuff, just like me and you, you know, it's me and you. And so if somebody wanted to cut me up and take what I said and really devastate me and make a hit piece, I'm sure that it would be easy. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't mean that, you know, anything that I'm saying isn't true. It's just it's just that easy to make people look bad.
You can make a hit piece for basically anyone.
Right. I can make a hit piece on myself just from taking clips from the show. It'd be easy.
That's why when you look at, you can tell it's a hit piece rather than like an actual expose of someone or something, when it's very emotional, it's very character attacking rather than fact based. And that's what the hit pieces always are. They're always and taking things out of context to make it look bad and things like that.
You can see it, but a lot of people want to see people destroyed. They want, if it's somebody they want to see destroyed, then they'll buy it hook, line, see. That's all the information. That's all.
They go, here's the proof. Yeah.
So the flat Earth thing is really kind of spun out of control. I'll say that. But the flat Earth thing is like spun out of control, and a lot of people that would otherwise. So the thing is, you know, so we're at a certain age, and we know what we know. We've grown up, but kids are growing up, and that's all they're being exposed to. You got to think about a kid now. A child that's sitting in front of YouTube, and then all of a sudden YouTube algorithm steers him into a flat Earth story. He doesn't have a chance to be critical, because this is all he's seeing, right? And then school is basically a failure. You know what I'm saying? There's no telling what they're getting in school anymore. It's a watered down, crappy version of what we had, and we got a crappy version of what really they were teaching people in the 70s. Had a better education, you know, in many ways. And so you got to think about kids nowadays that are being exposed to this kind of information that is out to debunk us, that are telling the truth about what's going on up there. You know, that's really what it is flat Earth is a big heap of crap that they're throwing on top of the SSP to make it look guilty by association, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And so you got to think about the kids.
Anything outside of that, it's just they're lunatics, you know?
Yeah. When I see two people fighting, I don't want to listen to either one of them. You know what I'm saying? Really, if there's two people fighting in there, I'm going to just walk away. I don't want to be involved. And that's, so they picked a fight with it. And there's a lot of disinfo, man, going on. That's why the conferences are so important.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Secret Space Conference, man, it's coming up May 2nd.
May, it's still I'm counting the days, man. I can't wait. It's going to be a blast. And it's nice because it's close enough. I can drive down. Recently I was gonna do, Jackie was gonna go there too. I was gonna do the UFO MegaCon in Vegas, and they canceled it.
Yeah, canceled it
because they couldn't find a mask-free place to host it.
Really?
They didn't want to obey. There were so many people that said they weren't going to pay for wear a mask. They were coming from out of state where they don't have the mask, and it was an issue, man. Like that was a major issue, and that's a big conference. Like that was a good lineup. I was excited about that, and I was gonna be the first one to set up books and sold and stuff. And so because of the mask mandating, you know, that got canceled. So, you know, I hate wearing the mask on flying, but you know, I'm going to put up with it if we all agree with it, and which we don't, but you know what I mean? Like I just kind of grin and bear it and get it done to get there. Yeah, you got to pick your battles. Exactly.
I fly. You got to wear them when you fly, and I'm not going to let that stop me from traveling. They're not going to keep me home, you know. If I got to do that for a couple hours and bite the bullet, then whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, but at the conference, I don't know. Actually, my favorite part about watching your Cocoa Beach presentation was the visuals. We hear your story all the time, but you had the visuals and the artwork, and it really it was captivating and it helped paint a better picture. So that was my favorite part about that, which I think stands apart from the online interviews.
I need to get busting on that. There's at least half dozen more slides that I want to add before the Secret Space Conference. Because there are things I want to cover that are different. I don't want to be, it's too easy to take the old slideshow and dust it off and just throw it up there and go. And I don't have a ton of them. I love Laura Eisenhower's slideshow because she's got zillions of slides and she just goes to, she just never, she's like, no, go. Okay, this one. And then, you know what I mean?
She's done. So, you don't even know what just happened. You're like,
yeah. Well,
she talks really fast.
there for a while, for a couple years, I worked with artists quite a bit. They were helping me out. And then I just kind of ran out of stuff that I wanted to visually see. I was getting artwork done to help me process the memories. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I was getting artwork done I didn't want to show anybody, but I wanted to see it again, just for the memory part of it. And so I haven't been doing that lately. I do want to say this, that Katrina Vogel, that is an artist, I had hired her to do original cover art for the book, and it was completely different than what ended up. And what happened was, when I made the cover art, I showed a bunch of people and they were like, that's really good and everything, but it makes your story look like it's fiction. And so that's why we picked the more serious, the more toned down. And but her art was really good. So I do want to put that in somewhere. Maybe I'll put it like on the cover page of my slide or something, but she's really awesome. And
she's the one who did our poster, and then she also drew just another thing online of us too. But yeah, she does great work.
There's a group here in Michigan that is throwing a book signing party where I'm going to read down at a bookstore in Lansing on the 27th. I'm going to go into the bookstore and like be the author guy. You know what I mean? Like, I should get some fake glasses and kind of dress up, but
there you go.
I'm going to go do that and do a book signing and read out of it. And they're throwing a thing, but I gave them the art from that, and they have posters that they're putting up in the bookstore that has Katrina's art in it.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So that is getting used for that, but I'm going to try to incorporate it into the slideshow. And I do need some more. I at least want to do graphs. Now I want to show and then a lot of people suggested that I need to have a more detailed timeline that shows, because people get confused, man. Like Aaron, I know that you study this stuff quite a bit. You're very familiar with my story and the timeline. So for me to flash a timeline up for you is like you grasp it. But to people watching it for the first time, they go, wait, you're where? Peru, you moon, and then Peru, and then moon. What? Yeah. Where? What? Yeah. And they get lost. So I want to make more artwork to kind of put a visual for that for other people. So it's all in the pipe. There's a lot going on, man. I tell you, I could do this full time, and I don't. I have a full time. I have a full time gig and a couple things, and it seems like there's just so much to do in this.
I don't know how you do what you do and have a full time job.
It's been every Saturday and Sunday, basically for 6 years now, pretty much. You know what I mean? That's really been that's been the deal. And like I said, I've done all those interviews, and all that is just answering people that are asking me, not searching for it. Like now I'm trying to push the book, but
somebody wants to know what bookstore, if you're able to say.
I will post it later. I got to dig that. It's like buried in an email. I could try to dig it up real quick.
Yeah, it's not that crucial, I'm sure, but no, it's amazing. And yeah, we're excited to have you out at the conference. Guys, if you want to come, tickets are still available, $444. That's 12 speakers, 4 days, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, buffet every day. It's really not a bad deal, especially including the meal plan. And aside from the information, you get to come hang out with everybody. And that's the best part about it. Just creating a space where we can all get together and just, banter and tell our stories. Do that. Please grab a ticket and come hang out with us. And also live stream. We do have live stream tickets for $111 for anyone who can't make it or doesn't want to travel for any reason, or if you live in another part of the world. So did you find your video, Tony? Or
I found it, but that is going to be a absolutely killer conference. The lineup is great. There's a lot of people there speaking for the first time publicly, which is many times, because of the adrenaline factor, that's the best show on earth. And there's going to be a lot of stuff. I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of the speakers there, all of them really. but I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of people in person. And because it's one subject, it's geared around, you know what I mean, the secret space program. It's going to be very in depth. You know what I mean? Like I'm not downplaying it, but other conferences, sometimes they go, it's all healing or it's all this or that. And it's very fragmented, the conference itself. And there's people there that have no idea what you're talking about. But this one is everybody's going to be on the same page. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait for that. I can't wait, man.
Right. And my favorite part is going to be what I'm putting together, like a whistleblower panel essentially on the last night. I'm gonna get all you guys on stage, and we're gonna have, it's gonna be very structured, you know, it's not gonna be, and then we're just gonna really like break it down and bounce some thoughts off each other and compare notes. And I think it'll be really cool. Something that we don't really get to see done anywhere.
I used to hate panels. I used to hate it. And I still kind of don't like in the Zoom format, the interview, like when there's a bunch of people talking, I kind of don't care for it because it's watered down. But the last couple of panels I did, the way that Brad was host and the way that he passed it down, they really were good experiences. And I think the crowd, you know what I mean? Like when the panels, put it this way, when I talked or when other people talked, people didn't cheer, but at the panels, people stand up and cheer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's when you're hitting home. That's when you know
you're creating
having an
energy field. Yeah. And people are flowing. Yeah. I've seen some amazing panels where you're like, man, the whole world needs to be hearing this right now. You know?
Yes. And a couple, so I'm always afraid of them because you don't know who's talking next to you. And you know, they're hostile. I've heard of hostile ones where people up there screaming at each other. I don't think that'll be the case at yours because we're all experiencers of the same kind of stuff. So yeah, it's going to be a great night for sure. I'm going to plug this book thing if that's cool. It's January 29th at the East Lansing Public Library on Abbott Road. And there's a large conference room. I guess I'm gonna read some of the book, and I'll have books there to sell. And it's just a couple hours, it's like 2 to 4 p.m. on Saturday the 29th. So anybody in Michigan or nearby could come by and check that out. But I'll be nervous as hell.
No, it'll be awesome though. I guess that's it. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to cover before we start wrapping this up.
Yeah, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna sign this right now. So
sign my book,
Tyler. I'm gonna sign your book, man. I'll get it in the mail to you tomorrow. Right here.
Hey, dear Tyler, I like
right Pyler, P-Y.
Tyler.
Yeah.
This book was good for 6 visits on your show.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'll fill it out later, but I just signed it right now. So
awesome.
I'll get you your copy soon. So thank you so much for this. You know, the book is a double-edged sword for me. On one, I like I said, it's a real, I feel a real like weight off my shoulders, like a huge accomplishment done. You know, like now there's a book, so they can scrub the YouTubes, they can delete YouTube, they can delete all that stuff. A book is a lot harder to undo in the future. That's right. It's in your hand. And so that's a big deal to me. So, and then there's a money issue there. That's, you know what I mean? Like I never really set out to do this for money like some other people do. Have.
Yeah.
I haven't done to that, but that is happening too. And it's like, you know, I'm really feel blessed and thankful about that. And so, but that's not the motivation for another book. The thing is like, I believe in the mission of this information. I do. And I hope that people, and with the feedback I'm getting, like I said, it's triggering, and some people just can't put it down. Like it took me 6 years to write it, and there's people reading it one day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, man, come on, savor it a little bit.
One day.
So one day. And on top of it, like people in my personal life, I feel like a very real embarrassment giving it to people. You know what I'm saying? That are like normies. Like, hey, it's for my book to go to a normie that I know in my personal life. It's like I feel embarrassed about it because, well, I mean, there's a lot of personal stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like very personal.
Yeah. I get that. There's
totally
people.
get that, of course.
There's people who would rather tell their whole story to 1,000 strangers than the 5 people they know.
That's right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And somebody that you're going to hear it from, you know what I mean? A month. Wait a minute. So, and I've had a few, like Alex Murphy proofread it. He did a proofread and he had some really good questions. He had really good questions that he came up with. Like he caught a lot of stuff and he had really good questions. I need to talk to him because I thought about the answer. I said, man, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. And there's just stuff in the book. So maybe I'll be back for 7 after you guys read it all and you have some more questions. I don't know.
Oh man, they're gonna be
Totally.
like, you'll be back for 17 eventually.
Yeah. Be way
Right.
more
So-
than that.
No, man, it's thank you so much. I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to get my hands on it because I just finished up a book, so I'm ready to go. So I'm just
Post
waiting.
time. So okay,
Nice.
I'll get it to you. I'll get it in the mail tomorrow to you.
Right on. Man, this was awesome. Guys, go check out Tony's book. I guess you can get it just on Amazon right now.
Amazon, and a lot of people have trouble in UK, but it is available in the UK. It's in Spain. It's big in Japan. It's doing great in Japan. Who would have thunk? You know what I
Wow.
mean? It's the English version, but it's in Japan. It's like they're buying it there. But
Now
It's-
Pilar makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
you don't know the inside joke. I went and got Thai food, and they ask your name on the phone. Well, when I got the bag, it said Pilar with a P, and it just stuck.
So on Amazon, they made it really hard to find your book because I searched just the title, then I put your name and the title. It still didn't come up. I had to Google search that, and then I found the link on Google.
Was that how it happened? So
Yeah.
Amazon, yeah. And
So
you would
Amazon's
think,
like buried it. It's
yeah.
hard to.
So like I said, the algorithm is weird how they do it. And we actually, there's a lot to it that was like way above me. You know what I mean? That we put in SEO searches, they give you keywords when you list it and all that. So it's a
Mhm.
complicated deal. And Amazon is Amazon. It's, you're
Yeah.
kind of stuck doing business with one guy.
I wonder if it's
Um,
just because it's so new and it's your first book, so maybe that's
It's only been a couple
part of it.
weeks.
Yeah,
It's only
maybe
been a couple
that's
weeks.
why.
We'll see how it goes. And
But if you go to your
then,
website, you should be able to get to it. Right?
it's on my web. There's a link from my website, and a lot of people are telling me they can't find it. So we do have SEO links that'll help the Amazon rankings that people click on them. So
There
if
you
you
go.
get a chance, even if you don't buy it, just stop in and click now and again. Whatever. It'll do what it's.
Send me all the links, and I'll put them
Yeah.
in the description.
I'll get you some SEO links for that.
Yeah, put them in
Yeah,
the
I'll do that.
description right after this, so
Yeah,
we
we'll-
can do that.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, man, thank you. Looking forward to the conference. Can't wait to hang out with you in person again. We had some fun in Florida, and it's cool. Like I
Yes.
said, it's in the Midwest, so it's centrally located for anyone who wants to come. And I know a lot of people in the Midwest are excited because there's never conferences here. So, yeah, grab a ticket, come hang out with us, and I guess that's it. Thank you so much. Thanks to our mods. Thank you guys for the donations. We love you all. We can't do this without you. And have a great night, and we will see you next time.